Oh man, we are kicking off 2023 with an absolute banger video topic. Now, I gotta go out there and say, before we dive into the videos here, just a few channel things. January is always, consistently, with 100% no failure attached to it, the worst month of the year for YouTubers. People like me who make our income on social media, through advertising, and YouTube content, we always get the worst amount of income in January, not because of you. It's not your fault that this happens. It's because advertisers spend all their money at the end of the year in December. It's why you see a lot of YouTubers go out there and take breaks and extended periods of time between uploads in January, because if you put the same amount of effort into videos in March as you do in January, you might get as low as 1/3 the income in the January month's worth of a paycheck in comparison to the other months. It's very, very drastically altered negatively in terms of your ad rates. But despite that, we still got a grind we can do, and we still got videos to make, conversations to have, and important hockey topics that I think fans are going to want to listen to regardless. Starting with this one right here. Take a look at this article that popped up on Montreal Hockey Now earlier last week, or should I say last year, that really got me in a weird mood. I saw this and I was like, oh my goodness, are you serious? We're doing this again. We're talking about this again. We're going over to the New York Rangers once again and talking about first overall pick Alexis Lafreniere. We had made a few videos the past little while here talking about how he got scratched the other night against Tampa Bay, how there are trade rumors and ideas floating around as to what exactly it is the Rangers would want in some sort of a Lafreniere trade. We had the guy who leaked a whole bunch of reverse retro jerseys saying that his source told him that the Rangers were asking for a certain price, and we made a video about that. And because of all of this Lafreniere talk, we had ourselves this article on Montreal Hockey Now saying this: the Canadiens should explore Alexis Lafreniere trade options. Now, the reason we had talked about this before is because, I mean, okay, you don't really need me to tell you why. Lafreniere's a French dude. He's from Quebec. And when he was touted as the first overall pick in the 2020 NHL Entry Draft, the Montreal Canadiens were not particularly a good team in this time frame. Now, sure, you could say, oh, they made the bubble. Like, they ended up getting themselves a spot in the playoffs, and they beat Pittsburgh. It's cool, right? And that's true. They did beat Pittsburgh in the, what was it called? The play-in round? Yeah, it was 2 years ago. 3 years ago now? No, 2 years ago. It kind of slipped my mind, but might I remind you, the Montreal Canadiens actually did have themselves a decent opportunity at drafting Alexis Lafreniere. This was because in the 2019-20 season, they were one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League. They were bottom 10, and because of the nature of how the league shaped up in the play-in series and the playoffs in general, they had this bubble where the majority of the league actually was invited. Only the bottom of the bottom teams were not allowed to join. And Montreal was the worst team out of all the teams in the NHL that was allowed to go to the bubble. They just happened to win their play-in series versus Pittsburgh, which is why they got a buy-in into the playoffs. Might I remind you, when Pittsburgh lost to Montreal, they were entered into that first overall lottery, and they had a chance to get Alexis Lafreniere, as did the Toronto Maple Leafs, as did some other crappy teams out there that we wouldn't have wanted to see make that happen. Edmonton had a chance to get Lafreniere, and that's why everybody was freaking out. And so Montreal, even though they had themselves the opportunity to do so, they ended up winning enough games in the play-in series to force themselves out of that conversation and inevitably draft in what was the 15th overall spot, where they took Caden Cooley. But now, with the rumors that Alexis Lafreniere is back on the trade block, or not in the trade block, but he's in a pretty precarious position right now with the Rangers due to his recent scratching, and with the idea that we have conversations coming out from Rangers beat reporters that there's some sort of a critical timeline-ish point in this relationship between Lafreniere and the Blue Shirts. This article goes out there and says that the Canadiens should explore Lafreniere trade options. We don't really need to go over the intro because it just kind of talks about the situation, how they drafted him first overall, and how Gerard Gallant has cited inconsistency as the reason for Lafreniere's frequent demotions. If the Canadiens decide to explore trade options for Lafreniere, the cost will likely put a dent in their 2023 draft plans by including a first-round pick from the Florida Panthers. There's no doubt Lafreniere would be an instant fan favorite in Montreal. And there's also the fact that Jeff Gordon was serving as the Rangers GM when they chose the Saint Eustache native first overall. But the Canadiens are already struggling to find ice time for their own first overall pick, Juraj Slafkovsky. Seeing as the team has struggled to find any success in recent weeks, another reclamation project may be too much to put on St. Louis' shoulders, especially since he's already trying to juggle a half-dozen veteran forwards who are also struggling to find consistency. But regardless of the Rangers' intent and current roster construction, at the very least the Canadiens should investigate the price tag for acquiring Lafreniere services, even if it seems like a high-risk, high-reward scenario. Link, as always, will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article, you want to get the piece yourself, but pretty much this article is saying that if Lafreniere is on the block, the Habs should be on this. And I feel like it's a pretty cookie-cutter type of conversation to have because we've already heard from other insiders that the Rangers still believe that Alexis Lafreniere can be a valuable and important player in the NHL. I've said this a few times as well, that even though his development has sort of stalled a little bit, I think at the end of the day, if Lafreniere pans out to what he could be, he is an 85, 90, maybe even a 100-point scorer in the National Hockey League. And I've also said the past few videos in the past few months that first overall picks like Matthews and McDavid have made us all really impatient when it comes to expecting first overall guys to be good. I know Rasmus Dahlin was good right away, but then he kind of declined because the Buffalo Sabres were bad, but now he's amazing. He's arguably a Norris caliber guy. Jack Hughes is already a franchise caliber center, and it took him a while to get there. Lafreniere is sort of on a path where if he had achieved that similar status, let's say next year or in 2 seasons, it wouldn't really surprise me all too much, but there would be some very drastic improvements to his gameplay that would need to happen if that were the case. Now, for Lafreniere and Montreal, this of course is a connection that people have been making for such a long time. He is from Quebec, so of course he was a Habs fan growing up, and when you talk about the potential superstar guy to play on the left side, I know you have Juraj Slafkovsky over there, but if you add a Lafreniere, plus Suzuki, plus Caulfield, plus Slafkovsky, you have yourselves an absolutely deadly forward core in the year 2025. Hopefully, at least. Now, at the same time, we do have to talk about the conversation we brought up the other day as to what the trade price is that the Rangers would be asking for in some sort of a Lafreniere trade. A first-round pick as well as a top-tier roster player. Now, whether or not that means a legit top 6 forward or a legit top 4 defender or maybe even first-line, first-pair type of guy, we're not really all too sure. But when it comes to what the Canadiens could end up giving up in some sort of a trade, packaged with the Florida first-round pick from the Ben Chiarot trade, I'm not really thinking about any guys that the Canadiens could trade away that would probably be of interest to the Rangers. I mean, they were kind of in the market for a forward like a center, JT Miller-esque, a winger like Patrick Kane. They already signed Vinny Trocheck in the offseason, so that kind of took care of the center problem. But where else is it that the Rangers could improve on other than up front? I don't really know if they need more D-men, but either way, for the Montreal Canadiens, unless you really go out there and convince the Rangers that Evgeny Dadonov is still the 70-point guy that he had been a few seasons ago with Florida, I don't really know if this is a trade that actually has the potential of getting done. I know a guy like Ben Chiarot, for example, got a first-round pick. I know a guy like Arturi Lehkonen got Justin Barron, which was a really good pick. But at the end of the day, I'm not really too sure if the Canadiens have enough assets, or at least the top-tier player, quote-unquote, that the Rangers would be looking for in some sort of a Lafreniere trade to package with a first. Now, we will say at the same time that the guy that leaked the reverse retro jerseys, the guy that said that his sources told him that the Rangers' price is that, they also said in the follow-up tweet that they don't think the Rangers are actually going to get that sort of return, but it's what they want at the end of the day. There might have to be some haggling done between Hughes and Drury should they actually converse about a Lafreniere trade, but at the same time, I feel like if Drury gets a call from the Habs, he kind of has a little bit of bargaining power there, doesn't he? Because he's like, okay, well, I know you want Lafreniere. You really want him because he's Lafreniere. So we have the right to ask you for a little bit more than if you were a team that was just kind of intrigued and not really super all in on this guy. Like, we know Montreal would love to have him, so there's a little bit of extra bargaining power there. But either way, talk to the comments your thoughts about the idea of a Lafreniere trade over to the Habs. This is like the nth time we've made a video about this sort of topic, but all the other times were back in 2020 before the draft actually came. So it's been a while. Throwback Thursday, or no, it's not Thursday, it's Sunday. Happy New Year, by the way. Yeah, it's January 1st. This story is going to be intriguing as we go along, but either way, talk to the comments, like your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this. And bye.